Okay, here we're to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another excellent Grand Seiko brought to you guys in part by Belmont Watches here locally in San Diego. A little bit about the brand. Seiko was founded back in 1881. They're Japanese in origin and now have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end, and this is on the high end side. This is the Grand Seiko watch, and Grand Seiko was actually founded back in 1960, and recently as recent as the 2000s finally kind of became its own individual brand versus a sub brand of Seiko. Now, in terms of the type of watch, I consider this an everyday dress watch. Some key common characteristics of design when you're looking for something that can fit within this space. Of course, clean, classic, minimalist design, and something that is sensibly sized. This is the Grand Seiko SBGJ231 Midnight Iwate, and it's a JDM boutique-only limited edition from their heritage collection within the 44GS line, of which pays homage to the iconic case shape that helped establish Seiko's unmistakable grammar of design. You can get this pre-owned from Belmont Watches for $5,575, which is an amazing deal considering this is limited and it was limited to the Japanese domestic market. And add to that just now recently in 2023 at Watches and Wonders, Grand Seiko did kind of announce a newer version of this that would be regular production, but would be an ever brilliant steel for $7,200. So these will be still quite desirable, and you're gonna get a much better deal on one of these than you would one of the newer ones in the ever brilliant steel. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, let's get to this gorgeous piece in hand and get that dial up to the lens for you guys to just breathe in. Wow. This is immaculate. Now that Mount Iwate design, we've seen it. Typically, it's over kind of a snow white color scheme, but my goodness, this blue dial is fantastic. Also, I have to say, very pleasantly surprised with how well the 40mm 44GS case wears. I have, for completely the wrong, I've been incorrect. I've been kind of scared of this size Grand Seiko. I've always thought the 40mm were a little bit oversized for a dressy watch, but after seeing this one in the metal, I have to say this 44GS case really shrinks those proportions down, and I'm very, very impressed, and I think this is actually the right size. I recently, or maybe not too recently, I looked at the shrunk down 44GS case. I think it's in the 36.5 or 37mm, and honestly that felt definitely more like a dedicated dress watch, as where this definitely feels more like an everyday piece, which I can really appreciate. It has a 40mm diameter. The height is 14mm, which some of you might be thinking that is very thick. I will say that Grand Seiko, it's still Seiko, so they know how to melt away the thickness. So this 14mm, honestly, especially with just the visual tricks that they're doing, right? You have the mid case, you have the case back, you have the bezel, and then the mid case, even with all of that high polish, that Zaratsu polish, and just this little strip of brushing, it just shrinks everything down in such a smart way. I have to say, it is extremely impressive that they can just fool me like that, and it's strange. It is very, very strange, but somehow this just, I don't want it to be smaller. I don't not even need it to be thinner. It's just really, really nice. So with that, did I mention that the lug to lug was 46 millimeters, brushed and polished, of course. In terms of the finishing, you're getting a beautiful sapphire, dual curved, with inner AR coating. That very nice fixed bezel there, high polish. The crown, interestingly enough, is a screw down crown. That does also help with water resistance, which does help these pieces feel more everyday capable. The crown is signed, and inside, because you did kind of get a little warning on the inside, you're going to have Grand Seiko's high beat automatic GS caliber 9S86, which does have a traveler's GMT with an independently adjustable hour hand. So the hour hand will be able to jump, which is typically going to be more desirable for actual travel versus if you were going to be using like an office style GMT. We're going to use that additional hand to track a time zone. Let's say you're in the West Coast, you need to call somebody in the East Coast, and you want to keep track of that time zone. That's typically how it would be used, and you would be making that hand the one that is adjustable. Here, it's your local hour hand, so you can jump that while you just leave this one set, let's say for your own home hours. And then when you're at home, then it's just kind of an AM PM indicator to let you know, whether it's kind of 10 AM or 10 PM. So very smart, and honestly, it's only been recently that they've even come out with something, the market for an affordable traveler style GMT. This has pretty much been relegated to the upper tier watches like Rolex, Omega, Grand Seiko in terms of having that jumping hour hand for the GMTs. But this also has that high beat frequency, so you're getting a 55-hour power reserve with a 5 hertz sweep, or 3600 vibrations per hour, or 10 beats per second. This is going to be, within the accuracy of +5 - 3 seconds per day. Of course, it's typically going to run better than that, but that is worst case scenario. And then another nice bonus is that it has 4800 AM of magnetic resistance. The display caseback does show you that glorious movement. It does have some printing on there, which some people aren't crazy about, but hey, if the printing is gold, you can't get too mad at it. And basically all it says is that, this is Seiko, and then it is a premier boutique limited edition, meaning that there's only certain boutiques that could have even sold these watches. Now, getting into this gorgeous dial and that texture, guys, you're getting applied indices that are polished and faceted of that finely textured dark blue Iwate dial, with, oh my gosh, it's just gorgeous. And then of course you do have that nicely framed date at 3 o'clock there, nice and balanced. It does have those signature Dauphine hands that are, oh my, I mean, look at them. They are just finished to an otherworldly level with that flat brush top and then the high polished bevel. It's really outstanding. You also, of course, do get the gold GMT hand, and with that screw down crown, you're ensuring that 10 bar or 100 meters of water resistance. These do have 19 millimeter lugs, and everything is solid in terms of the bracelet. It's a 5-link with a slight taper from 19 millimeters down to 18 millimeters. These have screw-in connecting pins, as you can see there. These are sweet. I wish that I had a couple extra links, or maybe just one, so I could get this to fit my wrist better in terms of kind of getting the wear profile. But with that, we'll just kind of drape it over my wrist. Actually, we don't even need to cut away for that. We can just do that, just since it's not going to be, well, I think I can close it on it, but it's just a little tight, but let's just shoot from the hip here. As you can see, if I get a little too close to the camera, it's gonna get some distortion, appear a little larger. So we'll just go ahead and keep it away from the camera, but we'll just tighten up the shot. And so you can get a better, more true aspect ratio of how this might look on your own wrist. You can see very beautifully centered. It doesn't appear oversized at all. So I'm hugely relieved by that. And I can see now why that is. Of course, it's because it has, although it has this kind of a slim bezel, then you have that chapter ring. It just pushes everything more centralized onto the dial. And then, yeah, there's technically between, let's say, the indice and the case, there's a lot of space there. So with all those steps down, it just kind of draws your eye in different ways. And you can see on the wrist, very nice. Those high polished undercuts definitely just reflect and kind of visually blend the silhouette with the background, and it just helps this look a little bit thinner, and the way that it sits and rides on the wrist helps it feel a little bit thinner, and it all just kind of contributes to a very, very nice wearing experience. So with that said, let's actually get this off the wrist, set up for some low light transition, because I don't believe this has any loom. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, there is no loom, but one thing I always like to work in, of course, is the low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you can find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's always nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, to maybe even include some harsh lighting that could typically expose any type of production defects. In this case, all you're going to see is some smudging from fingerprints, etc. Otherwise, this is a very pristine example of this gorgeous watch. The blue here, very vibrant, while not being campy or in your face, right, or a cheap blue. That's one thing that is just really stands out for me. I love the nice vibrant band there that comes through on kind of that overall sunray pattern that is also dancing on top of the Iwate pattern. So very, very cool. And you can also see that those indices are, oh my, look at that. The finishing on there just helps them catch light in such useful and unique ways, so that you're always going to be able to tell what time it is, even if there is no loom there. You're going to always, as long as you have some level of a light source, these are going to be playing with that light. Very, very nice. Okay, guys, so in terms of closing thoughts on the wrist, I've always been a bit intimidated by the 44GS case at 40 millimeters, but this model confirms that for this case shape, 40 millimeters actually wears really, really well and is not at all oversized. In terms of model variants, again, I mentioned that new for 2023 SBGJ231 in ever brilliant steel for $7,200. So that's coming out soon if you really like this aesthetic, and maybe you just want to go for like top end, that's there. Or if you're like me and you want to save money, hey, this is a nice watch. You could get confused with that one, with actually a cool story being that it is, again, a Japanese domestic market boutique only limited edition. Now, in terms of comparable models, Grand Seiko really owns the dressy sports everyday watch space under $10,000. And I think this model is no exception. Being high beat, being a GMT, a true traveler's GMT at that, this is a super compelling package under $6,000. And it's even, I'd say, even more considering the glorious dial and the signature case shape. So even on just paper, this thing is really sweet, but then you kind of figure in that beautiful iconography, whether it be the Mount Iwate pattern or that 44GS case, and it just adds a lot of icing to an already really sweet cake. So bottom line here, guys, there's something special about any blue Grand Seiko since it's the brand's corporate color, but pair that with a gorgeous Mount Iwate dial pattern and the iconic 44GS case, and you have what feels like a distilled Grand Seiko that just oozes everything great about the brand. With all that said, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do it like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.